Got a mic? Cool.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm a bit out of breath. So,
Catch your breath.
yeah, so we know each other since 2016
Yep.
when you sent us an email about an awesome project in Japan related to security around radiation, and I think we've been in touch ever since, and somehow we aligned on how we looked at technology, and I think from a perspective of opportunism and excitement and also realism, and realizing that things are incredibly hard, and that that's actually the fun of it. So yeah, that's my introduction of how I see you. But please introduce yourself.
No, I'm Ray Ozzie. I've been in the software business for quite a while. As Wienke said, I was introduced to IoT and the nascent Things Network at a time when there was a tragedy happening in Japan. I had left Microsoft, where I was chief software architect, in January of 2011, and in March there was a tsunami that took out the nuclear plants at Fukushima. A number of us, as technologists, did what we always do. We just tried to say, how can we help? How can we help? At the time, a group of us, a couple weeks after the meltdown, converged in Tokyo and decided that the best thing that we could do at the time was to find a way to use our skills to measure radiation on the ground, because the government and the power company had their hands full and they were relocating people, but they really weren't telling people, giving people any data that they could use to ascertain were their children safe, were they safe, and so on. So we decided to try to create a project around citizen science and open data, and used Arduino and Adafruit SparkFun modules to put together a network of mobile and fixed radiation measurement. The mobile ones were working extremely well. People put on Tyvek suits and drove around and measured radiation. We also had the opportunity to get some radiation detectors near the plant, and we needed a way to backhaul, and there were no cell towers at the time that were active, so we essentially constructed a mini LoRaWAN network out of piece parts as we could, and it was tremendous. From that experience, I learned two things. Number one, and we can talk more about this, but I think it was just really eye-opening in terms of the impact that mankind can have on the environment, regardless of whether you're pro-nuke or anti-nuke. It was a fairly significant environmental issue and disaster. There were no baseline radiation measurements at the time, and it gave me a much greater awareness of how IoT technology can be used to become kind of like Alistair said earlier this morning, to give us a viewpoint of what is the state of our environment, and because just giving people an awareness puts us in a much better position than if we just simply treat all resources as infinite, and the ocean as being an infinitely large supply of unpollutable water and so on. And as a technologist, it gave me a much greater awareness of how people who want to build a rapid solution are challenged, and how things that as technologists we think are easy, connect something to the LoRaWAN network, connect something to the cell network. This is really difficult. There are many, many hurdles, power management hurdles, security hurdles, just dealing with AT commands and modems and state tables and things like that. Professional developers, it's easy, but if you're in a normal company just wanting to build a product and get it connected to the cloud, there are many challenges. And so I created this company, Blues Wireless, specifically early on focused on cellular. How could we help the customers on that journey to making it much easier to build cellular-enabled products? But it pertains to every aspect of wireless in general and, frankly, building devices.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I think the thing you said is a theme that we have kind of in conversations we had, is that what I always see from you, and probably that's from your experience, is that you're always worried about that one thing, the enterprise developer with a limited capacity needs to understand it. It needs to kind of like understand the framework first. Mm-hmm. You always talk about paradigms and language and the way we do things, and I think that's a very interesting theme where I think you're always worried about, okay, kind of how is this going to explode in combinations and permutations, and how is this going to exponentially increase the complexity while we need the other way. I really hope that we're now in the IoT market where we come from this diverging world of all these combinations to something that just comes together, and maybe some technologies will die, some technologies will live, but things need to be simpler. And I think we just had a chat on that, and I'd love to hear your perspective on that, on kind of, it's so easy to say, let's make IoT easy, but it's so incredibly hard. So how do you go about with that?
Well, I've been fortunate, having been in the industry a while, to have seen different transitions, from client-server computing to web computing to, and so on. And every time there's a major technology transition, right off the bat, people who are technologically astute will build little platforms for their own thing. Like when the web first started, you saw dozens and dozens of startups building mail servers, building web servers, and little programming platforms around them to make things easier. And it gets very, very chaotic. And through natural selection or through some other way, ultimately that reduces, and the community of people who are expert try to make things simpler for customers to reduce choice. There are many ways of doing things. People finally decide, no, let's not have so many, let's just have 2 or 3 ways of doing things. And that's how the transition happens to a growth phase in the industry. The web wouldn't have grown up had it stayed very, very fragmented in terms of technologies. This industry that we're all a part of has taken a much, much longer time, I think, than anyone had expected. People had made growth projections early on about IoT because the demand is clearly there, the need is clearly there. But I actually put the blame on us, or the opportunity on us. We have not done the hard work of picking the winners yet. It's still a very fragmented ecosystem. We all get very excited about different technologies. Oh, here's a new radio access technology. Here's a new edge inference technology. There are many, many, many technologies that keep on popping up, but things are not going to become simpler for customers until we collectively decide to put all of our weight behind an RTOS or a tool chain that everyone can rally around. I'll give you an example. Microsoft Visual Studio Code, you can like it, you can hate it, but the community of developers out there has decided it is going to win. So everyone has rallied around it, and it's growing. And even if someone has an alternative, it is not helping customers to create more choice in that space. So let's all rally around that. There are many other things in our ecosystem around building hardware, many layers of the stack that we could help customers by just rallying around certain things.
So and how would you then call it? Is that then convergence or consolidation? Should we come up with another? Or we just, is it things dying off?
Well, there has been a viewpoint where people have been using the word convergence, specifically as it pertains to wireless technologies. I'm not big on convergence because it kind of it makes it sound as though there's one point that everything comes to, when in fact there's a reason that LoRaWAN exists side by side to cellular, that Bluetooth is not going away. There are multiple things, and I think what's important for us is to find some kind of harmony between them, so that essentially we decide, there might be some common semantics or common APIs that we use to transport things over these. So let's agree on the higher layers of how applications deal with them, and how can they live side by side. Where do we, I may be in disagreement with some people at this conference, but I view LoRaWAN as more LoRaLAN than LoRaWAN, because I believe that the cellular network is really the only WAN that we've got at this moment in history. Perhaps in the satellite realm, that will be another viable WAN, but unless something is deployed with the ubiquity of something like cellular, it's very difficult to call it a WAN. But LoRa has an amazing potential, even in the LAN perspective, because of its unique penetration characteristics, because of its long distance in agriculture. So I just think we can help customers by not saying all technologies are good for everything. If you've got a cornfield, it's probably not good to put a cellular module on every stalk of corn. There are reasons for where there's a sweet spot for certain technologies, but they can be in harmony.
Yeah, I think you make a very valid point, and I think it's growing naturally because the share of voice until now has been a corporate kind of industry standard share of voice, which was actually presenting basically a vision or a PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. And I think after 8 years LoRaWAN, the user ecosystem has spoken, and they say it's not LoRaWAN, it's LoRaLAN. And if you look at the 1.5 million devices that we have on our platform, it's all local area network. And the fact that we're doing a relay, it is an additional feature that actually kind of is really LoRaLAN focused. Mm. And also, if you look at the technology and the kind of the low power part, when you have devices that roam and come into areas where it has to have stronger emissions on kind of reaching it, the low power all stops. So we have, of the 1.5 million devices, I think 99% are stationary, and within a bit more than Wi-Fi distance of the gateway, or that, for instance, a fridge is in between. And I do really agree with you. It's kind of that paradigm, because I think the higher level kind of thing we want to go to is that what also happened. I was very active in mobile app development in the beginning, and then at some point there was this turnaround where people joked, "Oh, we should have an app for that," right? I mean, your uncle who's not kind of technical on a kind of birthday would say, "Hey, why isn't there an app for that?" But it also then got to the enterprise. If somebody works in a logistical processes, why don't we have an app for that? And I think if we make it simpler, like you say, we go to that state where people say, "Hey, why isn't there a sensor for that?" And that kind of moment that we can, where the native app development world got. And the parallels are exactly what you say, because there were two alternatives. It's Java, Android, or Objective-C, iOS. And and they gave enough competition and enough dynamics and enough differences to kind of like make the market explode.
Yeah, we just have to. It's not going to be overnight, but I would just encourage people. Again, I'm mostly repeating myself, but instead of just becoming enamored with the next thing down the line, the more we can get together in common interest groups in places like this conference and decide what are the things that we're going to believe in. I don't know how many of you remember LAMP, as a paradigm. It's a way of characterizing the stack. Or when HashiCorp came out with Terraform and things like that, there suddenly DevOps people had a common viewpoint of, oh, I need something to describe a model of my infrastructure. I need a logging package. They kind of taxonomized it like that. It's only going to be our industry that does that, and we can keep becoming enamored. Maybe we should put WASM containers on IoT devices. There are always going to be new opportunities to innovate, but this really does not help customers at this moment in time. And I personally believe the biggest challenge and opportunity for us is to reduce the amount of time that it takes from someone from concept to value. And that's only going to happen if this group says, nope, you need FreeRTOS plus this kind of microcontroller plus this little edge inference thing, and this is how you get it to the cloud, and this is the right security that you should use. Forget about all the other choices. Yes, they all have merits. Here's a toolkit, and it's a limited size, and we're all talking kind of the same way.
Yeah. And the integration the same way, right? Like if the enterprise integration, and
JSON is the way that we describe objects going back and
forth. And webhooks is the way how we...
Yeah, webhooks.
I think very interesting. So if we then, if we're having this conversation, probably we'll keep having this conversation. But let's say we have this conversation in 3 years. Mm-hmm. So what is your wish list? How does it look like?
It's really interesting that you say that. I mean, I think from a technology perspective, I'm actually very excited about what's going on in the NTN, the satellite space. I actually think that's there's untapped potential there. People really haven't conceptualized that there is another potential wide area network. The rates for sending messages are going to drop. And I think that's going, people who are familiar with it have stayed away from it because of the rate structure, just like they stayed away from cellular, because of rate structure and other impediments. So I think that's another big opportunity for us. I think I'd love us to work together to develop, maybe it's, I don't know if you remember the 10 factor or 12 factor, whatever. We have to come up with some practices and layers that we all agree on. I'd love to work with any of you who'd like to work.
Do we have to have like a traditional kind of IoT architecture book?
Sure.
With
and even if everyone knows there is no one type of IoT device, but at least of all the different layers of complexity that are in an IoT device, if we could say, well, this part of it is application specific, but all the rest of them will just snap into the normal, way of doing it. And I would like to see us make progress in there. If today it takes 3 years to get something from prototype or concept to deployment, in 3 years, I'd like it to be 6 months.
Yeah, these iterations need to be shorter, and I think there will be kind of exponential effect probably if there's more off-the-shelf devices and there's more inspiration. I think that's if you look at the wall of devices we have right now, It's categorically different with regards to maturity, ruggedized, industrialized, and if these things will all work.
I just want to make sure that people understand. In consolidation, and in simplification, not everyone wins. Okay, there will be things that go by the wayside, but the opportunity for all of us is growth. That we are not going to have the elbow in the curve that everyone has talked about until this industry decides that we're just going to pick some winners. And I look forward to that a lot.
Great. Can we finish up with that?
Yeah.
I think that's a great message.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.